Welcome to Future Role Model, a podcast that praises the unconventional and redefines what it means to be a role model. I'm your host, Natasha Pearl Hansen. And in the house today, I have Mr. Jamie Kennedy.
Yo, yo.
What's up? I just got to hang out with you on Sunday at the Comedy Store.
Yes.
2 months in a row you've done our show at the Comedy Store.
I loved it.
You kick ass. And
Thank you.
You're punctual, and it's really nice because most comics aren't.
Well,
Even at the show, you're punctual.
I try to
You're
be.
punctual today. You beat me here.
Well, we all have busy lives, and I figure that we have to be professional, and it's like
Exactly.
it's our job.
But that's something a lot of people I feel like don't understand.
That what?
Just that other people have shit going on too.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I had I had a few shows that night, so I was like trying to boop boop boop.
Yeah, that's right. Because you had just gotten back from somewhere, didn't you? Just get off a plane from somewhere, and you were like exhausted.
Yeah, I just came back from Saudi Arabia.
Oh fuck!
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's where you were. For
Yeah.
how long?
I was there for 4 days.
And a show every single night.
3 nights out of 4.
What was your experience like performing there?
It was quick. I honestly, I'm a little intimidated to talk about it because I had a great time
Yeah.
and I want to go back. And there's a lot of people that are gonna have all these different issues with and pro and against. But it was great. The people were great. It was very welcoming. The experience of performing was hard because there was a lot of restrictions.
Yeah, they give you restrictions on religion.
No sex.
No sex, no
No
religion.
religion. No politics.
And no, so what the fuck do you
So
talk about?
So no jokes.
Yeah, no jokes.
So basically, yeah, it's like really kind of, but they all watch YouTube and they'll probably watch this because I had a lot of people hit me up on Instagram and stuff. So the people want more. It's about, what the government is allowing in.
Exactly.
But they were very respectful to me and I appreciate them. But I wish, look, it's a deep conversation. We're going to go there. But the bottom line is they're starting to open up the borders. But the people are like you and me.
Yeah.
It's the people that run the government might not want them to
That's
be
what
so
I've been
free.
hearing more because I have a friend that runs Hollywood comedy pop-up shows.
Yeah,
I think
Hollywood
it's
pop-up.
Hollywood pop-up.
Ron.
Ron.
Beirut Ron.
Beirut
Yeah.
Ron. So in certain countries in the Middle East, they're much more open-minded. Like even in Dubai, people are afraid to go perform in Dubai based on restrictions, and everyone's like, Dubai is basically really liberal in comparison to the rest of that region.
That's what I'm hearing. I've never been there.
I haven't either.
But I did comedy in Beirut.
You did?
Yeah,
Oh, you did Ron's show.
I did that, yeah. And that was more of a city that was, they call Beirut the Paris of the Middle East.
Right.
So it was really either half really like remodeled and really funky or half completely war-torn.
Destroy. Yeah.
And the people there were, one of the first jokes I took out of it was like I was walking for shawarma at like 3 a.m. and this guy comes in, and I'm on the street and he goes, "Come on in, friend. Nobody gonna kill you. Nobody gonna blow you up." It was hilarious. And I was like, really? He's like, "Come on, have some shawarma." And I was walking around downtown Beirut at 3:30. Now, granted, Ron got a security, and granted that I had a guy with a nice piece on his leg.
Sure.
But I felt very safe, but obviously I had to do it a piece. But no, I took pictures, I hugged. So everybody was chill.
Yeah.
But granted, I went there like a Hollywood schmo, so.
Well, that's the stories I've been.
But they were nice, really nice to me too.
Well, and if you think about it, some of those most suppressed countries they're the ones that actually need comedy the most.
Yes.
So they're so appreciative when people come because it's like something that they don't get on a regular basis.
I did a joke about the media, man. The media like really puts these images out, and
Yeah.
it's like the Beirut people will tell you, the Lebanese people will tell you that, yeah, there's a lot of drama in that country, but they also like to have a good time. Like nightclubs really go up to like 10 a.m. and we'd be out every night.
Yeah.
And they want to have a good time, but they're also, it's not like you get stabbed every 5 blocks.
Right. I know they put this idea in your head. Like even when me and do you know Rachel O'Brien?
Yes,
Rachel
kind
O'Brien.
of.
So her and I did a European tour together, and we when we were in Paris, there was some of that yellow jacket stuff going on, or the yellow coats.
Yes.
And so a lot of people were calling us, and they're like, "Be careful in Paris. You're 2 American women. Don't wear yellow. Don't walk anywhere." And we're like, we have worse crime in New York than most parts of Paris. So like Can everybody just calm down? Granted, I mean, some countries are very scary just because they're going through so much, but I feel like there's this stigma of traveling to certain places that people are like, you're gonna die, be careful. Why would you go there? And it's like that's the people that need you the most, especially in this
I was more
field.
scared coming down the Comedy Pop-Up Network in Beirut. And
I know.
outside,
His assistant calls me and she's like, is he supposed to be getting dropped off in front of a place that looks
is
scary?
it by the crack dealer or behind the crack dealer?
Well, and next door it's
yes.
everything's
It's like a wig shop, a gun shop,
a baby clothing store
Yeah.
with that also sells golf attire.
Yeah.
You're like, what demographic are you trying to reach here?
golfing babies.
Golfing babies. So, how long have you been in stand up now? I know you've had a career for
Long time.
long time. What age did you start actually acting in? Because you were I don't want to say your age, but I know how old you are.
I'm 49.
Okay. I didn't know if it mattered. I didn't want to be like, he's gonna be 50.
Hey.
He's gonna be 50. I'm 34. I don't care.
I'm not an ingenue.
No, I know.
But wait.
Some people get funny about age, though.
Wait, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Why? Am I supposed to look here or here? I'll look here. Everything is, you can find out anything about anyone. You can find out what I spent on my credit card this morning.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't lie anymore.
I know. And that's why I laugh
49.
That's why I laugh when people are like, don't say my age. I'm like, what makes you think that somebody's not going to be able to figure that out?
Yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. And by the way, you know a lot of guys who are my age and older and some younger, and we'll all act like we're 18 anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're like, totally
we're all kids.
emotionally stunted.
But you started when you were a preteen, didn't you?
I started, well, I was an extra. I got my first job ever as an extra in Dead Poets Society, and that's a long story. But
Oh my God, I didn't know you were an extra in that.
I was an extra.
Fuck.
And that literally was like a Hollywood, like, luck story. Like, I was taking a local acting class in Philly, and I was working at Domino's Pizza, and my friend's mom was like a local actress, and she's like, I think I can get you on this movie as a background artist.
And you were like, that sounds amazing.
And I'm like, what is that? And she's like, those are people that walk behind the stars of the movie and they fill in the scene. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, atmosphere. And I was like, really? And I'm like, what do they act? And she goes, we fill up the ambiance. And I'm like, you mean extra? And she's like, no, we're not extras. And she got all aggro. And then I realized it was a whole world.
Yeah.
So I went down and I met, I was 18 years old, and they're like, will you cut your hair and will you take $50 a day? And I was like, yes.
Yeah, at 18, you're like $50.
I was $50 now is good. And now I went down on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, I was standing next to Robin Williams.
Oh my God.
Bizarre, right?
I feel like I have to
Philly.
rewatch the movie and find you in it, because that's before I wouldn't have been looking for you in that.
I wouldn't have looked for myself either. And it was at the movie theater scene where he goes, Neil! I'm in that scene.
You're just right there.
And Josh Charles, the man, so sweet to me. What's up, Josh? And so I did that, and then I was completely in love. I was like, purpose in life, divine intervention. I was like, this is what I got to do. So then I moved to L.A.
Well, backtrack for a second. Before that moment, what did you think you wanted to do?
I was doing it. I was delivering pizzas. And
that was your end all? That
Yeah.
was your end game?
One night on my shift, I made $118.
And you were like,
and I was 18.
"Ah."
And I was like, man, your hourly back then, which people don't realize, was like $4.25.
Yeah.
Which people don't realize how good it is today. I don't know, I'm gonna get shamed for that. And but you make tips. So for a weekend, I make sometimes like $300 for 3 shifts, and I was
you're like, I'm crushing it.
yes. And because pizza was all about what you can do at the door, how much you can charm somebody, make them laugh, flirt, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'll do this. I got enough. I would get a free small pizza at the end of my shift. I would buy a couple of tall boy beers, and I would go home and I would watch reruns. And I'm like, life is good. And I was 18.
Simple days.
Yes, right?
Right?
It was great. And I was like, this was it. I bought my car. And then once I hit Dead Poets Society, I had divine intervention. Like, I had always toyed with the idea of being in some type of performing, but it wasn't really me. It was more like people telling me there's nothing.
You should do this.
Yeah, there's nothing. You cannot fit in normal society. You're like weird. Some people thought I was really funny. Some people thought I was psycho. Some people thought I was interesting. Some people thought I was off put by me.
I feel like people still think all those things,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I feel like you're still that.
I kind of would walk around and be a circle and a square type of thing. So, but it was and then I was just like, I guess I got to try it. And then when I did it, I was like, yes.
Yeah, and were you like goofy growing up, or were you like the comedic relief in your family or anything like that? Or what was your situation like at home and at school?
I think I learned how to act when I was about 7 years old because we had this big heater in my house. It was an old oil heater, and there was a hole, and me and my brother used to play jacks. Remember jacks?
Oh, I love jacks.
Yeah, you remember
I used to play
jacks.
jacks and pickup sticks.
And a ball went deep into the hole in the heater, and I climbed in, and I was convinced that my brother and my dad, I said, I'm going to convince that I'm stuck in the heater. I'm like, I'm stuck. The heater's going to go on. I'm stuck. And they were like, no. They were freaking out.
Oh, my God.
And I came out, and I went, and they got so mad. And I was like, wow, you really believe that? And they're like, yeah, we thought you were going to die.
You're like, I can lie for a living.
Yes.
I can lie.
And it hit me at like 7. I'm like, maybe there's something to this. So
Yeah.
that literally, it was like a seminal moment of my life. Because
Ah.
I fooled my father and my brother, who were both notoriously smart.
That was your aha moment.
Yeah, kind of. And I was like, boom.
I
But
love that you remember that too, because I remember certain things like that in my life. Yeah. And so, did you keep fucking with your family, or were you kind of notorious for doing things like that?
well, I was like the runt. I'm the youngest of
The
all
runt.
these kids. And I was like late, and I was raised by the TV because my parents were older when they had me.
How many are in your family?
There's 6 of us. So
Oh,
it's
shit. So you were-
it was 4 girls and a brother.
Okay.
And my mom had me when she was like 41, almost 42. And it was like, like now that's considered like crazy. And back then it was probably considered crazy. And it was like, I was just, I was always rambunctious. I was born into a big family. So it's like fighting for attention and all
Right.
that stuff. And then Catholicism and then the brain I have and all this stuff. And it's just like, I just felt like I was born under an anvil.
Yeah. And you had to
I'm-
just push it off.
Yes, but I'm not like a repressed person. I'm like a energizer, right?
Yeah.
So it's like imagine being born like that and then being so it was like doubly fight. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, that does make sense. And were you brought up really religious, or was
No,
that?
but
It wasn't.
just
Okay.
the Irish Catholic
Yeah.
Philly, of like you can't do this, you can't do that. Here's like,
Everything's judged.
yeah,
Yeah.
super judged.
Yeah.
And and that's just the way it is, and that's the way it was, and I understand why. And it was just like I always felt I had to escape. I
Yeah.
had to escape.
I feel like that's a lot of people that end up out in Hollywood at a young age because they feel like they just had like something more inside of them, and in order to get that out, they need to physically leave where they live.
Yes.
Like, did you move to LA then when you were 18? Is that
Right after my 19th birthday. So
Damn.
I was, I would have left earlier. I wanted to quit school, and I wanted to be an actor or something like that when I was like 15. That's when I really started getting the bug, but I didn't know what it was.
right?
And my mom would not let me, and I was like, contemplating emancipating myself because I had read about that. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, I'll just follow. My mom just said, finish school, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. So I finished it. I was the only kid ever to graduate Catholic school, high school from my family. Made my mom proud, which was nice.
Yeah.
And then I was just, boom, I was
Just gone.
Yeah.
So what was that process like for you? Did you like just save up and put your little pizza money in your glove box and drive out to Hollywood, or what did you do?
I had about $1,500, and I borrowed about $800 from my parents, and they gave me 2 months rent. I figured out how to get $400 a month from a place. I had a friend come out, and he would live with me for 2 months, and then after that would give me enough time to find another roommate. And my parents put down a down payment of the first and last, and then from there, boom, I had like a 2-month window to
To,
start
like, to
running.
make it.
Yes.
So what was that experience like for you moving out here? Did you feel like because you were young, I read something about you that was really cool, and I want to get into this because I feel like
Get into it.
I feel like very intelligent people that are crafty find a way to get attention by agents and managers, and you had a way that you attracted agents and managers early on.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
You had a fake agent
Mhm.
that you would call as
Yes.
with your own voice.
No, well, I mean that's down. That's a few years later.
That's later. Okay.
So like, I mean, if you want to talk about that, we can. But
We'll
now,
get into that later.
Okay.
Okay. When you first moved out, what was your experience getting attention, getting work?
Well, you're talking about like somebody who knows the road or what they're gonna do. I mean,
Yeah, you just didn't know
you have to
yet.
understand. I had like 6 life experiences hit me at once. So
Yeah.
I never lived out of my house. So now I had the idea. I had the thing of paying rent.
Never lived on your own.
So
paid
living on
bills.
my own. Never really. Only had like a 1 or 2 girlfriends. Never was able to like stay out all night. So like I literally went from like, you know, a certain being like a little, not a prisoner, but like with rules to
Yeah.
and
Went from being under an anvil to like being a balloon.
yeah. And so it was, I didn't even know what a headshot was.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I was like, first it was just to move out to be like, and I was like breathing. And then I got a job just to pay the rent.
What was that job?
I worked at 24-hour fitness. And then I had to get a second job, and I worked at Domino's. And then I had like another job where I got a funky little side job catering like once a week. And that's where I met actresses.
Yeah.
And the actresses, Rhonda, to this day, I love you wherever you are. She was a Buddhist, and she like, I'm not Buddhist, but she like was like really focused and explained to me what Buddhism was. And she's like, if you want to do this life, this is what it is. It's a life. And she's like, here's what you're going to have to do. And she took me through it little bit by little bit by little bit. I had this, talk about role model.
Yeah.
I had these little angels come into my life and show me. And she's like, this is the first thing you have to do. This is a headshot. And boom, boom. And all I had was the ability. She was so sexy. And she had done some movies in the 80s and like this sexy kitten. And I don't know why, but I always made her laugh. And the laughter was enough to keep her attention, so she would give me advice.
More advice.
And then there was another girl, Cindy, who was so sweet. And I made her laugh. And these were like early 30s actresses, and I'm like 19, maybe. I was like this fun, I don't know. And they were always sweet to me, and they like, this is a headshot. This is a reel.
This is how you make a resume.
This is how you make a resume. This is the lies you should say. This is where you should say. This is how you say you are featured.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so they took me to the game, and I got my first resume. This is the agent you should say that used to represent you, and he'll lie if you give him $50 and to get you a better agent. And like,
so crazy.
we had the hustle down.
Yeah.
And they really hit me to the game.
Well, and that was in the days, because I came out later. I started in the industry after the black and white headshot had disappeared, but weren't you in the era of the black and white headshot still?
Big time. Well, it was black and whites. There was a color, and there was a Z card.
Oh my God.
And that's like for if you wanted to model, but like you were like a funny model.
Yeah.
There was a commercial headshot. There was a dramatic headshot.
Yep.
It's like so funny.
It's funny too, because even in the amount of time that I've been working, it's all changed. Now you don't even need any of that anymore. It's all online.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure.
like this amount the industry has changed in the last 25 years is pretty nuts. But so you had these people that kind of showed you the ropes, and in the meantime, what were you doing? Were you doing any extra work, or were you even working in the industry at all, or were you just saving and learning?
I got back Drama Log. Remember Drama Log? Do you know what that is? Wow, no one knows it anymore.
Nope.
Drama Log was West Coast version of Backstage.
Ah, okay,
so-
like a newspaper.
Yes. And so you would open it, and it would have all the listings, and everything was like, if it was union, it was like, whoa. Non-union was normal. Student grad film at USC was big, and then just whatever, right? So
Right.
like you have to. So like I literally started from the easiest barrier to entry, right? So
Yeah.
I got. I eventually worked my way up to USC student films. I had like 6 of them, which were really good. And one of the guys was like some type of worked with the guy that produced Titanic. So I eventually did work with young people in the beginning that ended up doing something. But I ended up auditioning for improv in the late 80s. Improv, the only thing I wanted to do was like be on Second City, right? Because I had
Yeah.
Mike Myers and different people I loved were there.
That's where I started.
Wow.
Second State Chicago.
Okay, so there was a Second City here in the late 80s. And I was going to join, and then I did improv, and I got into a group. And there was a couple of groups that would go around and do dinner theaters in schools. You make like $20 a show.
And you hadn't even been trained yet, right? You were just
No,
naturally good.
I was not. I was lucky. I got it, right?
Yeah.
So I got in 2 different groups. Then they both dried up in about 6 or 8 months. Jerome Cleary, who I owe you a call, he'll tell people. He used to drive me around. And he was in the group with me, right? You know Jerome?
Yeah. I know
So,
of.
so Jerome was the OG. So, and I was like, oh God, this stinks. They're both done. But I like gotten success early on a certain level.
You gotten a taste of it. What it was
Yes.
like to get paid to perform.
Yes, which was incredible
Yeah.
at 19. And then I was going to join Second City. And they closed. It was in Santa Monica. And I was like, oh. And they were like, well, you can move to Chicago. And I was like, that's a whole different life.
It is,
where
yeah.
there's a lot of things you can do here. But if I had focused and known that life, I might have did it. But I was like, there's ways to skin the cat out here.
Yeah.
So I was like, what am I going to do? And then I went to the Groundlings. They're not going to like this. And so I go, and the Groundlings were like, well, you start here in track 1, and then you go track 1A, track 1B. And I'm like, well, what if you can do this voice? And I did a voice. And they're like, that's great. You start here. And I'm like, well, what if you could do... And I did like 6 voices for like the person at the front desk. And I'm like, well, I already got paid. Like, here's my receipts. And like, you start here. And I'm like, dude, I've already been doing it.
You're like,
And
I need to bypass some steps.
And they were like $200 a month or something. It was like a lot of money, right?
It is, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, can't I just audition, like, and let the audience decide? Like that. Like, they might not like this, but I don't care. And they were like, nope, you got to start here. So I was like, all right, let me get back to you. And so then I was like, I don't know what to do. I went to Little Caesars. I had a pizza.
It always comes back to pizza,
right?
apparently.
It does,
It
right?
cycles.
And I was looking in Drama Log, and my friend's like, dude, you should try an open mic. And, like, people had told me this. I was working other jobs, and they're like, open mic, open mic. And so I had heard this, and I saw an open mic for an open mic, and I went to the open mic, and I did, and it was like a weird contest, and it was all types of people. And I got second place in an open mic. But
Where
it wasn't
was
just
it? Was
comics.
it at a
It was at the
club?
Beverly Garland Hotel. It was right there.
Oh,
In
nice.
NoHo. And then it was like with singers and dancers. I don't know what it was. Anyway, I won like a bottle of Marinelli's apple juice or something. And then I thought, I'm on. And then I did the next open mic, and I bombed horrifically, and I bombed for a long time. But that was my taste, and I realized, and people are like, you just got to do stand-up, dude, because you're your own boss. You're going to live by it and die by it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to pay.
To perform.
No.
Pay to play. Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you don't have to go to classes. And then I wrote down like which guys went on SNL from stand up and which did Groundlings and different. And it's a good mix. I mean, obviously there's a lot from
Yeah.
Groundlings and it's a lot from
And a lot of crossover, too.
yeah,
That's
but I thought it was more stand up back in the day, and now it's pretty much Groundlings.
mostly sketch, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it was back in the day. If you were a stand up, you had a good chance. And I auditioned and did that whole thing, but
Yeah.
didn't get it. But you know, look, it's all great, whatever your path is. I just didn't have the finances.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, too, is that when I started Second City in Chicago, like I told my parents, I was like, I will work my ass off. I will have like 4 bartending jobs. But if you can just pay for these classes for me every month, I will be forever grateful. And they did, like, my first year of training center, which was training center is basically what the Groundlings, same thing. They don't let you bypass that unless you're like, yeah, no matter what, there's a training center step, and then you have to audition for conservatory. So it was the same thing. But even being in conservatory, where it's like prestigious and hard to get into, you still had to pay to be a part of that. And I don't think people realize that if you're in Second City or Groundlings or whatever it is for 3 years, 4 years, like you're funding your own way through that program. And so when you started getting into stand-up, how long did it take until you felt like you had a rhythm? Because I feel like a lot of people I know that are really successful in their careers had a really great random first set on stage, and then they bomb for a while.
That's what I
and
just
they
said.
have to fight. I know, and they have to
Wow.
fight through it. They have to really believe in
Wow.
themselves to fight through the bombing.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah, it's
good.
pretty common.
Yeah, I think you go on, you have this weird blind faith, and you do it, and then you're there, and then you do it again, and you're like, no. Yeah, like I'll tell you what, I didn't do a set, I think, for another like 3 weeks after my first set, and I felt like I did it, right? I
Mhm.
did it, and then when I did it again, I bombed, and then I did it one more time, and I bombed even worse. And I thought, wow, I'm not good at this. I should not do this.
Yeah.
And then I stopped for like a few months. Not that I was ever really doing it. You have to understand how to do it. You have to go to open mics. It's not like you go and go, I'm going to be a stand-up. And you wrestle with these demons. And then I said, I was just getting pulled back. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I got to try this again. Because I would I'm going to spend all day sending tapes and stuff and, headshots. And I was like, but what can I do? Like, people got to see what the hell can you do?
Right.
So then I go, and then I did it again, and I just bombed. And then I was like, ugh.
And there wasn't YouTube yet then. You couldn't just put
No.
your characters up on the internet and be discovered.
Well, why would I want to put my bombs on the YouTube?
Well, yeah, but I mean, how people now, even if they bomb in stand-up, they can have funny YouTube videos because they'll do characters and they'll edit it, and you can still.
But I didn't even know what I was.
You didn't know
I
what
didn't
you were
know
yet.
what the hell I was. I was I hate to say this, but I didn't know. I was just an expresser. I didn't know how if I was going to be a comedian, an actor, a rapper,
Right.
So it was so anyway, and it was like you're saying, these role models. And then it was in late, I was somewhere 91 of January. And I had started in 90, and I was playing off and on. And I said, I gotta really focus. So there was a thing called the LA Cabaret. And they had an open mic from 5 to 7.
Okay.
And you get 3 minutes, and it was deep in Encino. And I said, I'm going to go there every day and sign up for 2 weeks and see what I could do. And that's when I started really hardcore. Now, I started in 90, but I was always able to get 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I saw other guys that were there every day. And then I started learning about how to call to get a featured spot. And then I started learning about other open mics and boom, boom. And that's when I really buckled in. And I was like, I'm not good. I'm not good. I'm not good. And then they were like, just keep doing it because you have something. But I'm not good. I'm not good. And I was just bombed for a while.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm not good. But they were like, this is how you get better. And I would just get one laugh. And that was enough for me. I was also I was highly tenacious and highly delusional.
Those are great qualities to have to make it in this industry.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I was had a good work ethic, and I had and I was a loser. So look, this is when people backup plan. Anybody who says backup plan, please give that to them.
Yeah.
Do not. It's disrespectful. Look, do
It's
not.
true.
You have to put everything, and you have to have nothing. You have to have zero, and you have your fear. I get so passionate about this. Your fear has to run you. So I was completely broke, and I had nothing. And I was completely tenacious. And I was delusional because I think I could make it. But just one laugh was enough. And somebody, either a comic or the girl selling the barista or somebody walking by, they go, that was funny, man. And I was like, yes, I'm Rodney.
That's such a good quality because I feel like everybody focuses on the in-between, the negative stuff where there's the lack of, and I've always been like that too. I'm like, if I can just make one person appreciate something that I'm doing, that's my fuel.
Yeah. And it is. So I tell anybody this, if you have a backup plan, please get away from me. You don't have a backup plan. Because it's disrespectful. I read something. If you're trying to be a doctor, would you have a backup plan by becoming a lawyer to become a doctor?
Right.
It's stupid. This is a hardest. There's no barrier to entry. Everyone thinks they can do it. It's insane. And there's no rules.
Yep.
So no backup plan, delusion, and hard work help me.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are 3 really great, groundbreaking rules. I feel like a lot of people don't follow.
Right? When these people are like, I want to do comedy because, I was, studied the greats. I'm like, I didn't. I didn't have anything else going on. People are like, you're stupid. You should do comedy. Or, you do voice.
You're goofy.
Yeah, I did watch The Tonight Show all the time.
Yeah.
And I did love to laugh, and I love Joan Rivers. I love Lamb Chop. I love Maud.
Yes.
I love
Lamb
Johnny
chop.
Carson.
Oh my God.
I loved Sam Kinison. I loved George Goebbels. I loved all these. I loved
Yep.
Eddie Murphy. And I did, like, comedy on The Tonight Show was everything. So I would watch that and sneak up. But I didn't know I wanted to be
It wasn't
that.
like you watched that and aspired to be like, oh, I
No.
have to be on that, or my end all be all is that.
Let me tell you this. Am I losing it? I got so passionate.
No. You keep going.
Because I would watch those people, and I would be like, my first comedy show I ever went to, I was 18 years old, and I took a girl out, and it was like a date. I was making pizza money, and I was thinking about getting in this industry. I saw Sam Kinison in Atlantic City, and it was the tour, and I forget the name of the tour, and I just saw Carl LeBove in Vegas recently, who's one of his openers, who's a legend and a genius, and it was, I forget, but it was this, like rock and roll. I forget the theme of it. It's so stupid. I can't. Anyway, I would watch those guys destroy. Probably it was Sam did an hour. Each of his openers did 25. I mean, a 2.5-hour show. Just the place was leveled. Okay, destroyed, and I would like. I didn't know how to think after that.
Right.
And so, like, it almost, I get so many mixed emotions. You said you didn't think you could do it. Didn't think I could do it. I didn't even think of trying it.
Right.
Like, but see, and now I'm going to take a shot now because I have such a reverence for it. And I believe it is such a special thing. And it's incredible. Anything in this industry, acting.
100%.
And when people are like, take it lightly, it really chaps my ass.
Right.
It chaps my ass
Me
when
too.
people think what it is, because I mean my second show I ever saw was Garry Shandling at the Ice House.
Funny.
I never it was my two
So funny.
those are my first two comedy shows.
Wow.
And then within my first 2 years of doing comedy, when I got to do a showcase, maybe 3 years, I got bumped by Rodney Dangerfield.
Yes. My third year, I got bumped by Seinfeld. And I was like, yeah, everyone was like, aren't you pissed you didn't get to do your show? I'm like, no, I got bumped by Seinfeld. Like, but doesn't that feel crazy?
I mean, think about that.
Oh, my God.
And it was a huge showcase. Rodney came in, destroyed. And I'm like, did the old joke of now it's this guy with the weird Nirvana shirt. And I was like, hey, Rodney, blah, blah, blah. How do I get on tour? And he's like, you gotta have jokes. Something he said, like, he took a diss.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was, and he killed again by making fun of me.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, it was a pleasure.
Oh, sure.
And so
Yeah.
what I'm saying is I got to see greats, and I was lucky to see them in the Pantheon, and it was just freaked me the fuck out. And to this day, when I play the Ice House, I always sometimes wonder if I'm doing as remotely as half as good as Garry Shandling ever did.
Oh, it's so funny too how you hold these people, because it's not necessarily like he was an idol of yours, but he was that first show that you remember seeing, and it's like,
Oh, he's one of the
I know that he is. Yeah,
He is
I'm trying to think of
a
even
mind.
who. Yeah, and like when I knew I wanted to get into stand up, I really relate with what you're saying, because I didn't ever do it because I was like, oh, I have to be like Lucille Ball, even though I watched her all the time. I just had my own shit going, and I used to journal. I used to, but before Instagram and all that stuff, you know how now people will stop everything and they'll take a video of what's going on? I used to stop everything and journal what was going on.
Yeah, that's good.
And I had all my journals still. And so I kept all those. And then years later, when I was like, I should try comedy, I would just look through my journals and be like, let me tell all these stories from funny shit that happened to me.
But don't you think, for me, comedy was one step away from alcoholism. I'm not an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I'm not a big drinker. Comedy to me was a way out of not having
Was the
a
other
life.
option.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I'm always, there are people I know, like Flip Schultz, who's really funny, who gives me some of my best jokes. He really grew up as a student of comedy in Fort Lauderdale, doing open mics, coming up through the system, going to Weird Al shows. Like he's one of the few people that I actually like came out of the womb to do this.
Yeah.
And he was like a student of it and like got the tapes and read books.
Really studied.
Yes,
Yeah.
and also just naturally funny. But he was like, he looked at it as like, he saw it as a career, and he really knows how to do it. As opposed to like, I feel like other people are broken, and I feel like, I don't know, like to me comedy wasn't like, I don't know, it's just something I got into, and then I realized how difficult it was, and then I realized, wow, like I really, if I'm gonna do this, I have to like understand what it is.
Well, and I feel like sometimes having that thing to focus on and figure out does save you from these other vices.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the vices go hand in hand. I mean, we've seen that happen in the industry too. And comedy does get this connotation for being dark and like everybody's twisted. And I'm like, we're all a little bit twisted. Like it's not just comics. Like we just vocalize it more in a different way.
Yeah, like I said the other night, I said I mean, you tell me how you feel, but I always say that comics really don't want to be funny. That we
want to be honest.
Yeah, we want to be what we believe is truthful, and we just put the funny to pepper it so people can digest it.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's such a good way to put it.
You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
I feel like we would just spout all day, and it's like I feel like I would say some things that are really intense to people, and they would look at me, and then I would follow up with joke, and they'd be like, "Oh, okay."
I can handle that.
Like, we're okay. You know what I mean?
That's so
like,
true.
Like, and I just feel like, yeah, man, like I don't even know what it is and how it is, and it's like I do feel like I'm lucky to be able to do it. I'm lucky to get all the shows I get, but I do feel there is I do feel like the no barrier to entry to comedy hurts me a little bit but it shouldn't be. I don't mean to sound weird. How can I say this? I just feel like it's not that easy. And sometimes people treat like it is, and it hurts my feelings.
Yeah, well,
does that make sense?
It does. It does. I get it. I mean, I've been doing stand up for 9 years, so I know that's not
that's a long time.
It's not that much in comparison. You've got I know people that have been doing it for 15, 20, 25 years, and I understand. But at this point, it does put you in your place, because I remember being 4 years in, and I was still good. I was still funny at 4 years in, and you have this false sense of entitlement in a way, even if you're not an entitled person, but you're like, oh, I'm 4 years in. I should be getting this. I should be getting my first TV spot, and it's fucking not true. Like, you know what I mean? And so being this far in, I'm like, at least I know that I was dedicated enough to focus on it. And now I look at my former self and I'm like, oh, what the fuck was that? And I'm going to look back on this self in a few years and be like, what the fuck was that too? But that's how it should be. You should always be looking back on your former performance self and be like, yeah, I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
But it's just such a cool thing to.
You started at what age?
I started at Second City when I was 20, but I started stand-up when I was 25.
So you did all that, and then you decided you're going to do the stand-up.
Yeah, and I was trying to not boycott, that's the wrong word, but I didn't want to do stand-up for a while, because to me, if you could improvise, you were so much cooler.
Yeah, no, I mean, improvising is a whole other skill, which is great.
Yeah, and so I would look at stand-up and be like, oh, you guys plan your shit? I don't. and then eventually I was like, oh, this is way better.
Hold on, let's go there.
Yeah.
Because there's games like freeze tag, give me a hat.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of like rules with the improvising.
100%.
So it's like, in fact, I did a show and I got in trouble for not following the rules. I'm like, well, true improvisation is
not.
But I understand but obviously it's great. But
yeah.
But so you started doing stand-up in Chi-Town?
Yeah.
Like Zanies or?
No, I wasn't even let into Zanies. Yeah, actually, one of my first sets was at Zanies, and I was a little bit drunk for it, honestly. I wasn't that great. I was nervous as fuck.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like that great. I don't even know what I did in that show. But I did stand-up in Chicago for about a year and a half, and then I decided to just up and move to LA.
Bam. Okay.
Because I was already like 5.5 years into performing in Chicago, 6 years, whatever it was, and I was like, I'm gonna have to start over in LA anyway. Yeah. So now that I have my feet a little bit wet, I'm going to just go. And so, and I did have to start over.
So let me ask you a question then.
Sure.
Sexuality in comedy.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? Meaning, when I started, I always tell people that, you know who the cutest young female comic was when I started?
Who?
Me.
Shit.
Because there's so many beautiful people, not just women, but there are a lot of beautiful women, and there's a lot of beautiful men doing comedy. Where when I started comedy, it was like a fucking freak show.
Yeah.
And it was like every archetype: the fat guy, the lesbian vest.
The
I mean, I don't
hairy
mean a
dude.
freak show, but we're archetypes. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
it wasn't.
saying?
Yeah.
The angry black guy.
Now everybody is like chiseled and model-esque.
Yeah,
It's different.
men and women. And so, and you, I would put in that box as a very attractive human.
Yes.
And so I'm not bad looking. So how does it affect you if it does?
I appreciate you asking me that.
Yes.
Because I feel like a lot of women, let me just.
But this is the men and women.
Men and women.
Because there's a lot of good-looking men comedians.
100%.
And sexy men.
And thank you for acknowledging that.
Gorgeous
There are.
men.
I never cared about my looks. I was always personality based.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I'm oblivious to my looks. I knew that they aided in my personality because I loved being underestimated. So I loved if somebody would meet me and they'd be like, oh, this cute girl is just going to do whatever. And then I would actually have something to bring to the table. And I was like, these people actually respect me a little bit too. Being cute and a girl in the Chicago comedy scene when I started helped a lot.
Oh, you were, yeah.
Helped a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I got...
Not that it helped a lot, but you stand out in L.A. So in Chicago, you're at 25. No offense, Chicago.
But it is the Midwest, yeah.
Yeah.
And
no offense, beer batted cheese curds.
And I did get a little kickback from like 2 people. There were like 2 people that were shitty to me.
Bitter Betties.
But I didn't pay attention to that. You just can't. Everybody else was lovely. And I did get a lot more stage time than I probably deserved at that time because I was attractive.
Yeah, and I wasn't even saying that. My question is, but you could say whatever.
Yeah.
Is that, do you feel that you have to play it down to... I don't know. Do you have to play it down? Like, you should do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I do see, like, do you feel you have to play it down? Or do you like, I feel like sometimes there's women out there and men that use their sexuality. And I'm, like, if I see a good-looking person on stage, I might be looking at that person and I got to, like, tone in to listen to the joke.
Yeah.
Do you feel that sometimes you have to do that, or?
For a long time I did.
Okay.
I used to dress really tomboy and sneakers and all that stuff. And I still kind of do sometimes, depending on the day of the week, you know, but not as much anymore because I feel like I have material that backs me up, you know, so I feel like no matter what I may look like on stage, somebody will just overlook it and just do. I also bear in mind that I don't want to be too distracting. So I try to look nice without being like overly sexualized. But I feel like a mistake that I see a lot of women make is they dress like a tomboy on stage, but then they use social media to like show every little bit of themselves. And I'm like, what dynamic are you trying to show here? Why don't you just strike a happy balance, look attractive on stage, be like normally attractive and in person and in social media. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, my question is it me or is there more beautiful people in comedy than ever before?
I feel like there are. I don't know what it is.
I think I know what it is.
What do you think it is?
Social media. It's the ability to get one like on Insta or one retweet on Twitter, and you're like, I can do this. So
true.
And that's like, you know, maybe I would have felt that way too. I have no idea, but I came in. So, and I think that's good, and I think everyone who wants to try or should do. I mean, we're all in this art form together.
Yeah.
But I'm just asking as somebody who would go on stage and definitely be a striking person, what you feel, if you think of it, if you don't think of it, because
I don't really think of it anymore, but I did for a while. I get in my head about stuff, and I still do sometimes. I mean, I still get in my head about that. We're human, but yeah, for the most part, I think. I always just hope, and the reason that I'm friends with so many other attractive comedians
You
Is they're
are.
all
By the
fucking-
way, you
they're all
are.
fucking cool.
They are. They are. Your
such
two.
cool-
I'm not gonna name names, but your two friends that you hang with are
I know.
hilarious.
I know.
They're smart and they could do characters and they
Yeah.
have their own. Yeah. So, but if people were to see you three out in the street,
Sure.
you know what I'm
They'd be
saying?
like, "What the fuck?
They'd
You
be
guys are
like,
comics?"
Yeah.
No, I mean, me and
no,
Al-
but no, just ignorant, ignorant though.
Sure.
I wouldn't, but I could see if I wasn't in comedy, I might be like that.
Yeah.
But
oh,
yes,
we get it all the time.
The paradigm of what a comedian is totally shifting.
Yep.
Or the whatever.
Yeah, and I'll go
what's
out
the
with these
word?
girls sometimes. We'll have like some dinner before a show, and people will be like, "What are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Oh, we're all comics." They'll be like, "Oh, that's cool." Like we're like open micers or something.
But wait, now do you say that? I mean, do you? Because I was in Uber yesterday, and a guy asked me what I was, and I said I was in Vegas, and I was like, I'm in town for a seminar from Phoenix. Like sometimes people recognize me, sometimes they don't. But
Yeah.
like, because I feel like when you say that, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
That's why I would always lie.
Yeah, I mean, I lie a lot.
For me-
I lie in airplanes because I don't want to have that
Well,
conversation
you
with
have-
people.
Oh God,
That's
geez,
like
5
it's
hours.
the worst. It's the worst. But if we're eating dinner like next to the Comedy Store, of course we'll be like, yeah, we got a show tonight or whatever. Like pimp it out a little bit. But
Okay, yeah, that. Okay.
yeah, you got to just pick and choose your battles when it comes to that.
Yes. Okay. Good. So you're like you're like me. I sometimes.
So how many years were you doing stand up before you were actually like feel like you were a working comic, and then how many years until you were a working actor? How long was that like chunk?
Well, okay, so here's what it is. So comedy is always something that reason I will always respect comedy is because it's always the one thing that's been there for me.
Right.
And so I said I'm going to do comedy, right? So you start trying to mail out your headshots and do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And get a tape, and then you don't have anything, and then you have all this energy like you have, and you're like, what do I do with the energy? And so you start doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And so you start doing it, and then you start going to open mics and stuff like that. So back in the day, you would work to try to get 5 minutes to audition for a club. So I waited I did the potluck, at the Comedy Store all the time, and I feel like I would go up at like 3 a.m. I feel like I went back
you
in
get a
the
late
day. I feel it went to like 4 a.m. And
That was the Robin Williams spot back in the day too.
probably
He used to always get the really late spot.
Probably, but like in '91, I remember, and I went on at like 3 a.m. and the OR was packed, and it was like James Stevens III. If you don't know who that is, he's one of the greatest legends of comedy, and he would just be destroying, and he would come from the main room and destroy and go and pop it. Anyway, and I would go on and I would bomb a few times, and I was like, I got to work my way up. So I went to and I auditioned at the Promenade, which the Improv had a club at the Promenade.
Mm.
And there's a comic by the name of Gene Pompa, much love,
Yeah,
Gene,
Gene.
who was like, literally, like I was signing on I'm like, what do we do with that? He's like, it's a sign-up sheet. I'm like, well, what do I do? He's like, put your name on it. I'm like, why? And he's like, do you want to get on fucking stage? And he was so annoyed. I just annoyed him. I didn't even ask him. I was like held up a pen. He's like, that's a pen, idiot. And I was so annoying enough that he felt so compelled to help me. And he was like, Jesus, just put your name in, sign up. Maybe they'll call you. And that's how I learned to sign up, from Gene Pompa. And then some other person told me, there's a Laugh Factory. Here's what you get to get in line at noon. And blah, blah, blah. And so somebody else, I think it was June Melby, I don't know where she is, hi June, who told me how to sign up at the Laugh Factory. So long story short is the first place that I really got in was the Laugh Factory. And Jamie Masada was like, you wait longer than anybody, but I don't know who you are, but you wait so long, I let you come in. And so
My God.
I did 12 weeks of waiting. And then he was like, you're so
Finally made it in.
tenacious. So I was able to get 3 minutes late at night, and that's how I started. And then from there, I would say in 1994, after 91, so I would say about 3 years in, I got my first TV spot.
Oh, shit.
I know.
Doing stand-up.
Doing stand-up.
Which show was it on?
It was on Fox, and it's called, I don't know.
You
It's
remember?
I'll send you the clip. It's like Comedy Around Town or
It'd be
something.
fun to see.
And that was in 1994. And that
How long was that set?
It was 6 minutes, and it was
Damn.
hard as hell
Dude, that's actually pretty significant
to
for a
get 6
first.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then from there, that showed that I did that, and the word was around town that I was like a young, cute, goofy kid.
How old were you by that point? You were.
I was 23.
Yeah, that's young for a first TV spot.
And then I was able to do that because there wasn't many people like me. And I had long hair, and I was, like I said, I was younger, and I was like kind of Vans MTV generation. So then MTV started popping around, and Comedy Central started popping around, and then I got something called an interstitial on Comedy Central, where they would take somebody like you or me or whoever, and they would take 30 seconds of you doing a bit, a character, whatever, and they would play it in between their shows. And
like
it'd be
an ad.
Yeah, and it'd be like Who to Watch, Jamie Kennedy, he
Yep.
would, and I rapped, and I did a weird character or whatever, and I joked.
Yeah.
And so different people had those. I think Jim Brewer had one, and different people. So I was able to do that, but it wasn't like I was making a lot of money, but I was starting to get those little things, and then
Notoriety, which helps.
teeny bit
Little
within the
bit of
business.
notoriety. Mhm.
And then the factory, I was able to get more spots, and for there, it was one of the first times that an agent saw me, and that's how I got a commercial agent. So they came in, and they came in. And so the factory was one of the greatest places because, and then I looked at comedy as like, well, this is a great place to showcase.
Yeah.
And so I started, and that's how I started. So, and then the improv started giving me more spots because the factory. The store was always the hardest one to crack.
Yeah. And what year did you end up becoming a store regular?
I want to say late 90s.
Okay, so it was a little bit later.
Yes.
Took you a
and
while.
it was, it took me a long time.
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was as I was going back and popping in and doing, the OR and doing it, because that was probably, I want to say 01. I'll have to look.
Yeah.
But I think it was
Okay, so that took you
it took
10
me
years.
It took me after Scream. It took me a while.
Shit.
Yeah,
that actually feels good to know.
Oh yeah, no, they were. The store does not care. You
No,
gotta
I
be
know.
able to deliver.
Yeah.
A good 15 minutes.
No,
so.
it's amazing. So at what point was it that you'd gotten your commercial agent? When did you start actually doing this faux booker thing? Because I used to do that. That's why I was so intrigued by reading that.
Okay, so I go. So I'm selling not too far from here. I'm selling telemarketing.
Okay.
And you call as a copy machine, and you call people, and you say, hey, blah, blah. Do you have a copy machine there? And you say you're calling. You lie. You say, I'm calling from Xerox. Do you have a Xerox copier? And only 1 out of 10 calls, somebody will say yes. You get all these numbers in HR departments. And then they say, yeah, can you tell me the model number, please? I'm calling from the toner factory. And then they'll tell you. And then you ship the toner. I'm admitting to a crime right now that I was part of. And you ship the toner. And then you give the number, and what the guy does, he gives it to a guy who sells it.
Mm-hmm.
And what they tried to do, I heard, was they shipped it. And then people in billing didn't realize it wasn't their regular company, and they would just pay it. So I was the guy that get the number. And every time I would get a number from a copier, I would call and just get a copier number. And I didn't know what they were going to do with it. I heard just later that they would go and they would give the number to the salesman. And so every time I got a number, it was 75 cents to me.
Damn.
So if I got 100 numbers in a day, do the math.
Yeah.
And it started at 6 a.m. and I'd be done by 1. So I got really good at it. And it's a soul-sucking job, but porn stars were in there, strippers were in there, musicians, actors, comedians, other comedians I work with.
Yeah.
All types.
Damn.
And this was in 93. And I started using voices. And I'd be like, hey, how you doing? I'm calling from, you need it. So long
You were practicing.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, y'all, what's the name on your copier down there? It's Earl. And I'd lie. And so people would give me numbers, and I would just fucking lie my face off.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
I said, this is like Jerky Boys. You remember the Jerky Boys? Oh,
Yeah.
Legends.
Yeah.
They were the best.
Yeah, I
The
do.
first prank calls of all time.
Yep.
Anyway, I was like, this is like Jerky Boys. So I said, I got to figure out how to do this for myself. If I can sell copiers, if I can sell office supplies to the phone, why can't I sell myself? So I bought a book. I bought all the agent book. I bought all the comedy booker books. and I started calling people as this old man named Marty Power. And I knew there was a guy named Martin Bauer who was starting a company called UTA. And so it rhymed with power.
Yeah.
And so I said Mighty Power, and I would call, and I used a whole sales technique, and I would say, what I was a cross between. I was Robbie Benson and James Woods, because you would always say, what is this?
You have to give something to...
Yeah. There's all these rules in selling. Compare it to something else. Take 3 no's and then hang up. All of these different... So I would use the same tools as I would use to sell you a toner for your copy machine. I would use to sell myself.
So smart.
And back in the day when you couldn't talk about yourself and say how great you are, which is still bizarre to me, and I'm learning how to accept it because everyone else does it.
Yep.
If you talked about yourself and say, hey, I'm amazing, they would go, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Get the fuck out.
Yep.
Like, you let your work do your talking, you know?
Yeah.
Fuck,
isn't that crazy?
But no, you would have to go and you'd be like, I killed last night. And they'd be like, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, kid. And no, here's the tape. Yeah, did you doctor it? No, they'd have to come out to a club, see you destroy, and then maybe then they would listen to you.
Part of me still wishes it was that way, because there's,
yes.
my God, there's so, but I kind of...
We are in the S your own D era.
Yeah.
And I'm behind because I still don't realize you have to S your own D. And people are like,
hey! Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it's, and there's
used to people saying you're good.
Yeah. I mean, even now when I was setting up our Europe tour and stuff, I mean, me and Rachel made our own press kits and we're sending it to them, and we're we would be really thankful to perform in your space. We had to really be cautious of our wording. We weren't we're the best and we're gonna sell out 1,000 seats. We were we're pretty great and we're really nice and you'd really like to work with us and we could probably sell out 120 seats.
Yeah,
we were
great.
Super honest, but
Yeah.
we come from that. We're in that age bracket spanning the two generations.
Yeah.
So there's still a humility. I've always carried a humility with me.
Oh yeah, big time. In Midwest.
Yeah. And so it's funny to see that now where everybody's just the amount of entitlement is just through the roof.
That's a whole other podcast.
Right, I know. There should be a podcast about entitlement, but how would you even get a word in?
Yeah.
So how old were you when you got Scream?
And did that? It's 25.
And did that come from being exposed in the comedy scene, or what was it? Just
Yeah.
an odd.
100%. I owe everything to comedy. So, doing the factory a lot, got seen by an agent, multiple commercials, auditions, then no's, then got one commercial. I got nothing for a year, and then when I got my first commercial, I made $99,000.
What?
I know.
What the fuck?
Exactly.
Even now, that's impossible.
It was back in the day, and it would
retracted. Now it's nothing again. But for a while, it was really good.
So I made 3 years or 4 years worth of money in one day, and it was I had zero. Bobby Lee told me that too. He made a couple $100,000. It was for Blockbuster. And so I was able to get.
You put them out of business.
Probably. Thank you. So I got that, and then that led to a manager saw me.
Yeah.
The manager then took me to APA. Mm-hmm. APA signed me, and then APA started sending me on to auditions, and one of my first auditions was Scream. And I didn't really have many credits. I had a couple little TV credits. I had a great credit on Ellen's show. Thank you, Ellen, and different people, and a couple commercials.
Yep.
And this Scream was a whole other long process, but I auditioned, and the whole thing was, why he's not a name. We don't know who is this guy. And they were like, if we're gonna break somebody, let's break this role. Mm-hmm. Rose McGowan was kind of unknown too, but she had done some movies.
Yeah, and Nev obviously was really big in that era.
We were all young. I mean, the biggest star was Courtney, but even Courtney at that point was just getting red hot. But I had known her forever, and her work on not Facts of Life, Family Ties and stuff. Mm-hmm. But so everybody had credits except me.
Yep.
And that was the whole. And then I got it, and I was just literally mind my P's, my Q's. I never made eye contact, and it was Courtney was like, honey.
And Lillard.
Yeah.
It was such an iconic cast. I mean,
So I learned, like, I slowly, like, as people talk to me, I talk to them. I only talk to them as much as they talk to me. Like, I was like the opposite of the world now. Like, I was scared to like make eye contact, and Courtney is like,
Sure.
"Hey, do you want to have lunch?" I'm like, "My day's off tomorrow. Do you want to like go to the mall?" And I was like, I was like, so it was like stuff like that, and I just like it was. So that's how I learned, and that was.
Yeah.
It was one of the greatest experiences. It was very emotional for me. I was very
Sure.
happy. I was very sad. It was a lot. And when we were doing it, we knew that this little horror movie, we thought like if it could be like Critters or something, we'd be winning.
Yeah.
And then as we were,
Little did you know.
yeah, we saw relationships forming, marriages forming. We
Mm-hmm.
saw careers being built, careers being rebuilt as we're doing this, and we're like, this is really something. And our rap party was in Sonoma Valley. And we just got drunk and smoked weed, and we were like, "What did we just do?" And we were like, I think we're onto something."
Yeah.
And we had no idea, and we just thought, and it was such a
Fuck.
little family,
So crazy.
and I was just like,
But it's such a like it's actually like an iconic movie of my generation.
"Yeah."
Massively.
Let me tell you this. Let me ask you your opinion. To
Yeah.
me, you can't get better than The Breakfast Club.
Oh yeah.
The Breakfast Club to me is one of the great top 5 movies of all time.
Of all time.
It affected me in many ways. I don't know why. It was like the first time I ever like got attention from a girl. Like that summer, I don't know what it is. It was Anthony Michael Hall. It was Judd Nelson.
Well, it was accepting a lot of different types of backgrounds. It was just a very inclusive film.
But it just hit me, and I was like, this film speaks to me. And to this day, I can watch it every day.
Oh yeah.
When we did Scream, people have told me that Scream is like their Breakfast Club.
Really?
And I'm like, and I don't know, but to me, it's like Scream is still relevant as ever.
Yeah.
It was just
it
trending
is.
the other night,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I still don't understand what I'm in with that.
Yeah.
Because to me, you'll never top The Breakfast Club.
Well, I mean, they're different types of films, in
I
my
know,
opinion.
but they're like pop
But
lexicon.
they are, yeah. I mean, like, from my generation, it was Clueless.
Clueless is incredible.
It was Scream. It was, yeah. I mean, there's a certain movies that I just remember that I'm like, these shaped my childhood.
That hit pop culture lexicon.
Yeah.
For me, it was Weird Science, anything John Hughes, was Chicago guy.
Sure.
All of those movies. So I know that Scream has now earned its place, and it's earned it for a while as a pop, something that made its mark.
Yeah.
It's different than Chinatown, but it is known like Chinatown.
Well, yeah, it was
You know
the
what I
first.
mean?
It was the first horror film, slasher film with like humor in it.
Yeah, well,
Really? Right?
I
Wasn't
think
it?
there was other ones before that.
Were there?
Well, Chucky.
I didn't find Chucky funny at all. That
But-
scared the shit out of me.
But it was, I guess they say Scream was self-referential. It was like
Yeah.
the first meta.
Yeah, meta. Mhm.
And it was commenting on the genre, and that was all Kevin. But
Yeah.
I mean, just to be a part of it, like you said, I don't even know. Like sometimes I forget that I'm in it.
Do you feel like since you moved to LA, you've kept your head on pretty straight and your focus pretty clear? Or did you ever have times where you backtracked or you were in like these down spirals or anything like that? Or did you pretty much just keep it?
No, I've had all types of things happen. No, very, very focused, very, very focused. Then I started getting success, and I'm like, well, I've been doing this for about 7 years,
Yeah.
which isn't that long, and I'm like starting to get success. I can enjoy it. So I never really drank much until I started going to rap parties.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
And
oh,
you're
okay.
exposed to these famous people. And
Yeah. And so like the big thing back in the mid-late 90s was the apple martini. And so I bought my first BMW, and I took pretty much my whole Scream check and bought a BMW. And then I was like starting to meet more women because I was going to premieres all the time.
Yep.
And I would get invited. So then I would go, hey, do you want to go to this place? It was Club 360 on Vine, where that new Vine Tower is. And I
Yep.
would like apple martini. We'd have an apple martini. I'm like, this is amazing. And so like, and then it was like a social thing. Like I would meet an agent and be like, apple martini. And so
Fuck.
then for a while, I just was getting so much work, and it was so easy that I was like very fortunate, and I was respecting it. But I worked hard. I played hard. Then I started making my own stuff. And then I was like, I was right the whole time. And then I was getting very cocky and less patient. And then I started having some struggles, and shows getting canceled, and movies not working. And I'm like, this is bullshit. And I was like, fuck it all. And then I was like,
Yeah.
whatever. And then I would just do whatever the fuck I want. And then starting around 2009, I started getting more humble and like, I'm gonna try this road. And now I've hit tops, I've hit bottoms, and I've never like flamed out, and I've never like totally blown up either. But I've known, and I'm also known on both ends of it. You know, there's some great things I've done and some bad things I've done.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm just in a place where I am. I don't want to say this sensitive. I am grateful, and I am fortunate. And there are times where I have to, like, I do get frustrated.
Sure.
And I have to look at that and go, boom. Like, it is a privilege to go on your show and do comedy on a Sunday night at 11:30 for about 45 people in the belly room. It's pretty damn packed on 4th of July weekend and make them laugh for 35 minutes. Like, it is a privilege. Tourists came up to me. People came up to you.
Yeah, and you messaged me the next day, and you're like, people loved the show.
They loved you. You had a great set.
Thank you.
And you really did. And Courtney did too. And I mean, it was, people were loving it. And I was like, wow, like, this is a Sunday night. And like those moments, listen, I've done 5,000 people at colleges. I've done shows with Pablo Francisco in London, a couple thousand people. I'm telling you, it's these type of moments I have. And I'm just lucky that people want me. It doesn't say it's always like that, but no. But I am more grateful. But no, you go through many things.
Oh yeah, and I
so
think
I've
people
had it
need to recognize that, because everybody expects that once you hit this peak, you've got to stay there.
Yes.
And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves.
You do.
Whatever your peak is, whether it's A-list peak or D-list peak. Everybody's peak is different.
See, I just hate this listing. It's like,
I know.
I'm happy to be in the alphabet.
Me too.
You know?
I'm just happy to have work, period, whatever that is. But I feel like people put so much pressure on themselves to be a certain, and there's really not ever. It's just this forever.
Well, there's
hills and valleys no matter what level you reach.
Yes.
So I think it's just nice for people to hear that no matter what you've done or what you've accomplished, you're still going to have really gnarly moments, and it's okay.
Yeah, I forgot this is a role model podcast. If you are, like you have to look at this like a job. I know that sounds crazy to people, but I'm just telling you, it's not going to make your happiness. I know that's going to sound crazy to a lot of people, but I've done a lot of stuff. And I'm telling you, the happiness in life for me is coming from connections with people who know you on a deep level and really respect you and understand you. And getting successful is amazing. Amazing. But you will, when you get success, look around you. You better have the right people to share that with.
Yes.
Because I've had the right people, and then I've questioned some of the people. And that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But you really need somebody. The best I can say is going through that journey with somebody, that's the best feeling.
Yeah.
And you are definitely going to go like this. And now I just look at it as I got to go to Saudi Arabia. I was lucky. Boom. It was no different going to Saudi Arabia than playing your show in the belly room.
Well, I appreciate that.
It's true. It's all a privilege.
Yeah, that's a great way to end. Is there anything coming up? This will come out on Tuesday. Is there anything coming up that you'd like to plug, or anything that you're excited about as far as projects? Or
I did a movie called Trick. I think that's going to come out in the fall with Omar Epps. I did my new special called Can I Say That? I'm meeting the producer at 4 o'clock today. Hopefully, he's going to submit it to Netflix.
Awesome.
We'll see what happens. And then, I don't know, I'm on the road. You can look at my website, although I got to update it. But, I'm around. You can find me.
You can find him. And you can find me at MPH Comedy on all the things, the podcast at Future Role Model, or at Role Model Pod on Twitter. Any closing remarks?
Do what you love, and the money will follow.
Boom. Peace.